We didn't have TikTok, and then we had TikTok on the podcast known as
Trapped Under Plastic, the podcast that started at 90 minutes in length, but now it's just the preamble.
And you love it.
Yes, that comes to us from Adam Tomlinson 918, not 917. If you want the podcast known as read live on an episode, just put yours down in the comments on YouTube, and we pick one of those and read it in each episode, so you too can have your handle read aloud.
That is true. John, what's new in the world of the hobby for you?
Nothing about the hobby. Let's talk about Burger King smell.
Burger King, that flame broiled. I always want to say frame broiled.
Yeah.
You know, I always swap them around.
It is a very hard thing to say 10 times fast. Flame broiled. So I'm sure everybody knows the Burger King smell. Anytime you drive by or even anywhere near a Burger King, it's got this distinct flame broiled smell that smells to me like I imagine Heaven's Gates.
Probably,
like.
yeah. I live right by a Burger King.
Yeah, you do.
I actually live in the mecca of fast food. There's like everything there that you could ever want, and it's awful because like I come home in the evening at about 4:30, 5 p.m., and the first thing I do when I get home, just to get it done with so I can come home and make dinner, is walk the dogs. And I walk the dogs, and I smell that fucking flame broiled beef.
And the smell can travel. Like,
Yeah, it travels.
You're probably like 6-8 blocks from that.
Oh yeah, easily.
And it's even on the far side of the murderer's row.
Yeah.
It's furthest away from you. So it's like it travels over the KFC. It travels over the Arby's.
The McDonald's.
The famous Dave's Barbecue.
It does, yes.
It travels over all of those. It's like, fuck y'all.
Yeah, dude.
We own the smell
Yes.
in this hood.
So you have a theory about this.
I have heard rumblings through the internet, which I'm sure makes this statement true, that they pump some smell into their exhaust system that leaves through the top of the building that smells like that.
Some beef pheromones.
Yeah, the
Pheromones?
Pheromones, yeah.
Pheromones, not pheromones.
Meat pheromones. Meaterones.
They actually like designed a specific exhaust system for this.
Yeah, I assume it's kind of like if you've ever had like a humidifier system in your house.
Yeah.
That connects to comes from your furnace to the ventilation ducts. I assume it's just that, and then they just have this can. It's just like can of smell, and they just glug, pour in a can every week.
It's like fart spray. You know?
Yeah,
it
is
beef
fart
spray.
Because inside the Burger King, it doesn't smell as much like that.
Yes,
it doesn't. It smells more like an outside than inside. What's the deal with that smell? I don't get it. So they got me. These motherfuckers got me. I got my hair cut yesterday, and every time, because like 3 blocks away from the Burger King in question is where I take my daughter for ice skating lessons every Saturday. It's also when she's got swimming lessons where we go for swimming lessons. And every time we go there, I get an eye roll from her because I'm like, oh, the Burger King smell. We need to get Burger King. And my wife and my daughter hate Burger King.
Ugh. And
so I never get Burger King, which is probably for the best because the smell would get me every time. And so I go get my hair cut, which is also stone's throw from this same Burger King.
Okay.
Get my hair cut. I leave. It's like 10 minutes to 11. I'm like, I'm hungry. I should just go home and have my shake. Fuck this. I'm getting Burger King today.
Yeah, you got to check in every now and then.
Every now and then you need to give yourself a little reward. And usually I'd give myself a reward after I'd finished editing a video for a week, and I had not done that, so it was kind of like it made my whole editing process afternoon and evening last night much less productive. One, because I had already got my reward.
Yeah, there's no BK to look forward to.
Nothing to look forward to, and plus it was just like, I don't even know. What am I gonna do? I'm stuck with the meat sweats and feeling like lethargic because I try not to eat fast food almost ever anymore. And when I have it, I'm like, I realize like what it changes in my body. Like, it's like, oh man, everything is like running on like like your car has been out in the freezing cold for so long, and you try to start it up, and it's like, zhig, 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 and like that's what my body feels like.
Mm-hmm.
So I had Burger King, and it was ass. And I'm reminded that they get you with the smell because they need to.
Yeah. There was a point in my life where like I would like go to McDonald's to get a Big Mac somewhat regularly, like once every 2 weeks, and I was like, yeah, I love Big Mac. Big Macs are good, but there are so many fucking better burgers, especially in Minnesota.
Oh, I know.
It's insane. Like even just Culver's simply is like at least twice as good.
Culver's is the best fast food burger.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean,
I think so.
is there any question?
I think if you want to count Shake Shack as fast food, because it is technically fast, but it's also like 30 or 40% more expensive.
Right.
I think Shake Shack's a little bit better, but like price performance, dude, Culver's any fucking day of the week.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Culver's is like the same price as Mickey D's and BK. It cost me like $15 for my meal.
$15.
Yeah, I got the BK Big King, which is a burger like the size of a fucking frisbee.
That's why you were going zhug zhug zhug, because you ate a frisbee-sized fucking burger, bro.
yeah, double.
They spray all that beef spray on there.
I got that beef fart. Yeah, and then I had the beef farts. It kind of comes full circle.
It does, yeah.
I think maybe the smell is just the people sitting in the car eating outside, farting.
Yeah, they bottle that shit and then they recycle it into the atmosphere.
The guy just comes up with a hose, he puts it in the window. He's like, "You gotta suck it out."
Why do you suck it out, dude?
You gotta. Yeah, haven't you ever seen a movie where they gotta suck the gas out of a gas tank? You gotta start by sucking it.
Yeah, okay, yeah, you gotta get the flow going.
You gotta get the flow going, and then he puts it into like an old Fanta bottle.
Fanta bottle. This is
Yeah, that's it. This is the process by which the beef fart spray is made. So, long story short, Burger King makes their own fake smell, and the food is not as good as it used to be, as I remember it in the 90s and early 2000s.
okay.
That is my story.
All right, we got there. LVO just happened this past weekend. Motherfucking Squidmar went.
Yeah,
Squidmar, why couldn't you have gone when we were there, bro?
him and little Harry Potter.
And also, I think one of their other employees, I think he's the guy who handles the camera, probably also edits. I saw a third Swede there as well.
Yeah, they stand out.
They do, yeah.
They're the ones squinting because they don't see the sun. So I'm sure he's doing a video on that. I had some thoughts about it. Looked like LVO. It's hard to tell because it's a really gaming heavy experience there. What the hobby side is looking like.
Yeah, I didn't see any like models from any painting competitions like kind of like floating up into my social media at all.
Well, Verco's Vault now handles the big LVO painting competition, and some of the pictures I saw of stuff that was there, I was like, there's some real legit things. And the one that won Best in Show was oh shoot, now I'm gonna forget his name. I apologize. But it's the first time he came to the U.S. He's the dude that did the candle. It's a little mini that he's a candle knight and he's on a snail.
Yes, I know this. Oh, Zabra art.
Zaba, which he also said he's coming to Adepticon.
Nice.
And he's entering Golden Demon.
Nice.
And he's painting the same fucking model I'm painting.
Oh.
So
Okay.
John's got a whole.
You never want to hear that, you know.
A whole nother level of fucking stress. But he just posted that he had the box, and this is like 2 days ago, and he just got back from LVO. So man, I guess if you don't have a job or whatever, I can tell you the amount of.
I'm sure he has a job.
Yeah, then good luck to you, man, because this fucking thing is a ridiculous amount of work. It is fucking massive, and it's seeing how smooth and how intricate he paints. I'm like, oh, maybe he can do it. Maybe he's just that much faster and better than me. But like, this thing is a fucking chore and a half. The one thing I wanted to talk about with LBO. So Verco's Vault handled the painting competition. They made a post on Facebook that their actual museum still isn't open. You can't come. Don't try to come when LVO is there because their museum's not open.
Seems like a good time frame to hit if you wanted to get some extra traction.
I don't know if you've been advertising and pushing through all those miniature painting outlets and getting involved in the community and the hobby for, I don't know, 4 years at this point, and your thing still isn't open. And every picture I see from that place is in this dude's fucking living room with models sitting on a table. I'm like, how is it not a thing? Like, why is every picture at this dude's fucking house?
When did we go to LVO?
Was that before COVID? Or was it after COVID?
I think it was after
2020.
Wasn't last year. Was it the year before that?
It was 2021, I think we went.
Okay, so it was Verco's Vault was definitely a thing at that point.
Yes.
And it was definitely a thing before that point as well.
Yes.
So maybe over 3 years. So here's the thing that we don't know. We don't know, like, let's say you have this dream to make a museum of any kind. How long does that process take to I think the hardest thing probably is to find all the art to fill the space. That's number one. Number two, to find a space. Number three, to market it to people, to have, employees to manage it. Like that process, like how long did it take to start the Minneapolis Institute of Art? Like who knows? It could have taken 5 fucking years. It could have taken a decade. I have no idea.
Yeah. Well,
maybe it's just taking a while to get the art.
I know when we went to LVO, so 3 years ago, 3 years ago, the building was already purchased because Ben and Matt went there and toured the facility.
Cool.
And they already teach classes in it. So they have something open. So that's good. So they like all these, fancy painters that come and teach classes for like weekend classes and stuff. They teach it at that place. So they have some stuff set up. I'm just like, I don't know. I mean, from all the pictures I've seen of all the sheer massive amounts of art, you could have a smaller room or a smaller section or something. But I was just like so frustrated that I'm just like, why is this not like a thing yet? I know they have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of works of miniature art.
They have hundreds of works of art?
Go look at like their Facebook page or their Instagram thing.
Okay.
There are tables. There's pictures of like 5 or 6 tables, and every table is like a 8x3 table, and it's covered, every section of it covered. So if you're going to give some things, you got to give some room to breathe for each of these pieces. So that's a lot of space that would take up if you put them on display.
I'm so curious how they're going to display this stuff. I wonder if they're going to take large format photos of them to have them on the wall next to the pieces.
That would be awesome.
I feel like that would make sense. And I feel like I've seen, like when Roman did like a little thing, I think he did that. I think he had large images so you can go and see them because it's kind of more similar to traditional art. If you're I think he was trying to attract the typical art scene, and that's what they would come to expect is like maybe having a larger format image to look at.
I think you're right that if you have a blown up picture and you can then view it through your traditional art viewing like angle or your eye of like looking at everything within this composition of the golden angle and the drama of the piece. Mm-hmm. And you see like, wow, that is really interesting. But then right next to it, you see how fucking tiny that is.
Yeah,
like
right.
You add this extra dimension of your viewer experience.
True.
And being able to look at it in three dimensions and be able to look around the back of it and the side and everything like that, I definitely see a value in that. There's a logistics issue probably with that when you're dealing with thousands or hundreds and multiple hundreds of pieces of how much space that would take up. So you need to give each individual thing a space. And
right. It'd probably be like, maybe you'd have like the Roman Lepat collection and like one of his pieces would have like a massive photo, like his big zombie Los Angeles, San Francisco like bridge diorama would get like a big photo or in a couple like accent shots, something like that.
So if they had like 6 Sam Lens pieces, they'd have one feature piece.
Yeah.
Or look at this, we're doing your job for you, Varco's Vault. Or
I'm sure they haven't done it.
yeah, they have like multiple employees. I'm sure they've already figured this all out. But this idea is better. But you also rotate featured artists that you have that more in-depth for each of their pieces in the separate kind of, maybe if it's part of your entry hall or like wings or something where you really can dig deep in that, and those rotate over time so you can kind of show how each one is featured over a month or something like that, and you can keep it kind of fresh that way as well. My whole point in bringing this up about Virgo's Vault is not to shit on them, but to say it's such an amazing thing. It's such a cool world that we live in that this is going to be a reality. I want it to be a reality. And seeing that post was just kind of like, oh, what the hell? I know they did bring pieces to LVO that are part of the collection on display so people can see those there. That's kind of weird. I mean, it's cool.
It's marketing.
I would do that too. But it's also like, you're also having a miniature painting competition, and shouldn't that be the focus of the pieces that people look at instead of like trying to steal their thunder and saying like, oh, here's some of the best pieces that have ever been painted ever. And they're like, they're right next to these.
Yeah.
And like if I'm going to go enter, I'm going to look at that table first. I'm like, maybe I won't enter.
If the Verkos man himself approached you to put one of your pieces in the vault, would you say yes or no?
First of all, I would be incredibly honored. I would be like, wow, this is surreal and really, really cool. I would. I feel like an action RPG character that has several trees to tech into. And the tree that I teched into
was being a fucking YouTuber. And the other one over here, being an artiste, that one's got like 10 points in it. So I feel like not worthy, you know,
Bro.
at this point in my hobby career. I feel like I've made my bed and now I'm going to lie.
No. Dude, the thing is about this game is it's free to respec at any time.
The game of life.
The game of life is free. Well,
All right, I'm respecking.
okay, in the game of life, it's not free to respec. But instead of it costing bottle caps or gold or whatever, it just costs your time and your focus and your commitment. And you're like, okay. Yeah. But there is a good story to be told in this, is that you only have so many spec points.
That's your whole theory of you only have so many minis to paint in your life, right?
Exactly. There's only so many minis, and at some point it'll be your last mini. So make each mini something that you're excited to paint or something makes you happy. Right. But same thing. You have only so many points. You can't spec out every tree. You know?
And you can. You can't. And I want to.
Right? So if you want to go all the way down to the pinnacle ability in your
you want to get to that final tree talent?
your warrior protection stance, you can't also then go into brutality tree and then get the best DPS pinnacle too. Like, they're smart about how they set the number of points you can spend.
I got a bone to pick with World of Warcraft. Why do they gatekeep having fun? You know, why should I fucking pay to respec my tree? That is the lamest shit ever.
I thought they got rid of that.
I hope they did. When I played, I would do dungeons with my guild, and I need to be protection for that, and then I would do arena, and I need to be arms or fury for that, and I'd be respecking every single week. And I got to a point where I literally couldn't afford to do it, and my guild paid me to respec. Yeah. I was like, I don't have all this fucking gold, dude.
Yeah, what is it? Because doesn't it cost more every time you do it, too?
I can't remember.
All right, so what the thing they have now, I'm pretty sure is you have multiple specs that you can have saved.
Okay, good.
And you can just go back and forth.
Good.
So exactly your issue was now solved.
I had to pick all the talents every single time. It was so annoying.
And they're like 60 points. You're like, okay, what was I?
Yeah, it was.
Sure, you had it memorized, but
I probably did. But yeah, I didn't like that.
Oh gosh, yeah. I'm glad that we got to. We went from Verco's Vault to World of Warcraft specs
real quick. Actually,
real quick.
That was too easy. Actually.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, though, Scott, is you have and this is kind of something that we're touching on, but we're going to get into the main topic today, is like you have absolutely the ability and the capabilities and the skill set to respec into artsy.
Thank you.
So it's not like you don't have the tools.
Yeah. I don't know, and I'm sure some people will hear me say that and feel bad about their own skill, and that's not what I mean. I'm sure that Vercos, if he looked at all the models I painted, would find one that'd be suitable for his thing as well. But that's just how I feel. Like, I feel like there's this crowd of display painters, and like at the moment, I'm not engaging with them a whole lot, and so I feel like not a part of it. But that could change for sure. You're right.
I will say it would be a little bit tentative because Gary, the guy who owns this, does look exactly like Saruman.
Yeah, he does.
So I have to wonder.
Which I kind of like.
Like if he's going to set my mini next to the orb of Palantir, and he's going to then use it to siphon magical energies into the orb to see through the eye of Sauron.
Whom do you serve? Saruman. I love that.
Yeah. How many orcs would you say that he's birthed?
In his mud pits.
Give or take.
That's in the basement of the museum, this fucking orc mud pits.
Yeah, the whole thing is just a front. This is just a front for the fucking mines.
Strangest front ever.
The orc mines, they're just like bubbling pits where they're being birthed.
Yeah, dude, just dropping trees down into the furnace.
Listen, they say that there's a little bit of magic and a little bit of painter's soul that goes into every one of their works. He's just siphoning. He's soul siphoning.
He's sucking it out, dude.
Yeah,
this fucking straw right into that Fanta bottle.
Fucking dude, you needed to change your look a little bit if you wanted to pull this off.
Yeah, it's a little obvious, Verka.
Right, yeah. It's a little bit. There's like, he also has this giant like head of the Balrog. It's like a head mount. It's huge. It's like the size of a boulder. It's massive. I obviously picked people taking pictures of it there. I'm like, dude, you're too on the nose here. They're gonna catch you,
dude. Come on, man. If you want to dominate the world, you gotta talk to us.
Although, if that's the way the world is gonna end,
oh please,
I'm all for it.
I'm that over Zuckerberg, please.
Yeah, that I would rather fall to the giant Dark Lord overlords than the AI overlords.
Yeah. Oh my God, please. Yes, I agree.
You know,
I want to go to battle. You know, I mean, I don't really, but if it comes to that, I will.
Right. Yeah. We've been preparing for this theoretically our whole lives.
Yes, we have.
No
Theoretically.
No actual training has been done in this process.
No.
But if the miniature painting orcs are birthed, you heard it here first. That's all I'm saying.
All right, we're still in the Preamble Ramble. It is cold as balls here.
Yeah.
It is. It's fucking, man. So you're talking about cars and starting slow. I don't even need to look at the temperature to know how cold it is, like to within 5 degrees, because my car behaves differently at different temperature bands.
Oh.
But when you get below 0 to 5, everything in my car gets not sticky, but like it's like
Tacky.
it's hard to describe. So I put my key in the ignition. I turn the ignition. It's kind of hard to turn it. It feels like I'm turning it in putty. I turn my blinker on. It's like slow. I push the pedal down. It's like kind of like harder to push down. I turn the wheel. Everything is like kind of like slushy, frozen putty.
Oh.
And so
Your vehicle is just like a ragged old man.
yeah, but at like 0 to 5, that doesn't happen. But like below 0, it does happen. And then like also, my car never gets above the C value on the way to work. Like it'll start to raise when I'm driving on 280, which is a highway. But the moment I exit, which is like kind of right away, it drops down below, back down to 0. And so it's just like freezing cold the entire time on the way to work.
It never gets fully warmed up.
Oh, it doesn't even get to half. It doesn't get anywhere. It doesn't get anywhere on my way to work. It's pretty cold.
So with wind chill, we've been like consistently below -10 Fahrenheit. So I think in Celsius that is like -80.
Hold on, I'm doing the conversion right now because I knew it was gonna happen. So -15 degrees Fahrenheit, which is easily where it's gotten to with the wind chill, is -26 degrees Celsius. And then just normal temperature, easily not -10, -5 for like 3 or 4 days in a row.
Yeah. So we're reminded that we do live in the Great White North here.
Yeah.
Which is weird because we're like Canada's all above us, but they also have a lot of cold weather too.
Winnipeg particularly is very cold, but Toronto and a lot of the other cities that people live in Canada are at the same
Elevation?
It's not elevation, it's like latitude as Minneapolis pretty much.
Oh.
So like Duluth, Winnipeg, like everything in Manitoba is fucking cold, which is like right above us. But all the other guys are kind of like right in line with us.
And I think the closer you are to large lakes and stuff, that actually will lower your temperature at a certain point.
Yeah, I think so.
So it makes it colder when it's not as cold out because you get that cold air coming off the water.
Sure.
But like the coldest cold, it's not as bad there. But it's still cold. And
cold.
Yeah. So we have to. It makes walking the dog terrible.
Oh my gosh, it does. Yeah.
And now all the dog poop in my front yard is just like frozen fossils. And it's like you have to wait in the spring. It's like you have to find the perfect witching hour.
The great pickup.
Yeah, you do the great pickup, but like you can't wait too long.
Yeah.
Because then it becomes a sloppy mess.
Yeah.
You don't want to be in there. But you can't do it too early because then it's still like frozen to the snowy ground.
Yeah.
You know.
See, what you need dogs who just eat their own frozen shit. My dogs will like pick it up and play with it. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, Crusher, stop it. And he's like dodging around with like a giant chunk of shit in his mouth. And I'm like, this is disgusting.
It looks like he's smoking a big turd cigar.
Yeah. So we try to get him to go to the bathroom on the dog walks. We walk him twice a day, and they mostly go to the bathroom out there so we can pick it up immediately so it doesn't end up in the backyard so they don't end up fucking eating it because they're fucking animals.
Remind me never to kiss your dogs again.
Dude, don't.
I thought they
You get
smelled
diseases.
like I thought they had Burger King scent on their breath.
Bringing it back.
Bring it all full circle.
Fucking bookending right there, baby. BK.
It's been a while since I talked about
It's been a while.
since I talked about Fireball on the channel.
It's been a while. It has.
I don't drink very much anymore. I really only drink when Drew comes over on Wednesdays and we do a little testing. Drew is a mixologist. He likes to make fancy drinks. So we'll watch our TV shows. We're watching The Silo. We just finished up season 2 of The Silo. Holy shit, if you don't watch The Silo, it's so fucking good.
Okay.
It's on Apple TV is the only downside. So.
There's a lot of good shit on Apple TV.
There is.
I won't lie to you. Severance? Have you seen Severance?
I haven't seen Severance, but I've heard good things about that. Maybe you need to add that to the list.
Good shit. It's good shit.
But it's like post-apocalyptic TV show.
Okay.
Where you're in underground silos. So there's this giant underground silo that this whole civilization lives in. These people, right? And it's like I don't remember how many levels. It's like 150 levels, and there's a central like circular staircase that runs all the way up through the center of the silo, and it's kind of like a lot of who's in charge and what's the secret knowledge that's run, and it's all run by the IT department, and then like all these people have different and if you like do a really terrible crime, or if you ever ask to go outside, they send you outside to clean. And to clean, what that is there's basically just a fucking a camera, like a PC camera, your face cam, that's outside, and it shows a large landscape of the outside, and it looks like frickin' Mad Max. It's all terrible and whatever. And you go outside, and you're in this spacesuit looking thing, and you clean it, and then you're gonna go walk over the horizon. So everyone's inside watching you walk over the horizon. You fall over and you die. And then something happens.
Okay.
And I'm not going to give any more than that. But that's the premise of the show. It's got 2 seasons now. It's got Tim Robbins as the head of IT. The good old Tim Robbins. Remember him from Shawshank?
Is he the main character in Shawshank?
Main character in Shawshank.
Okay.
Yeah, he's Andy Dufresne
Okay.
in Shawshank. So he's in there. It's a really good show. What's his name? Zach.
Galifianakis.
Not Zach Galifianakis.
He's not in their post-apocalyptic sci-fi TV show.
No, but it's a different guy. He's the
Is the guy in Scrubs? Zach?
No, maybe his name isn't Zach even. Anyway, in season 2, he's a new character, and I swear to God, this dude needs to win an Emmy. He's so fucking good. He's in Without a Paddle. He was in that comedy movie about like a spoof on being in nature. Steve Zahn.
Steve Zahn.
Zahn. His last name is Zahn.
Okay.
He's in it. He's hilarious, but like
some comedic relief.
Yeah, not even though. He's not trying to be funny. He's just his character is just fucking off the wall, and he just plays him so well. Steve Zahn.
Z-A. Oh, this guy.
Yeah.
He's also in Sahara.
Yes.
I've seen that. Okay, yeah.
He's good.
He is hilarious in that movie too.
He is. Yeah, he plays himself really well. So Fireball. Anyway, Drew came over, and he brought this fancy bottle of Fireball. It's like aged so many years in oak barrels Fireball. And so he's like, well, we're going to have to try it. So we're setting up to do a Fireball taste test. We're going to have a variety of spreads of traditional Fireball, this new fancy Fireball, the Jack Daniels Fireball, this other new company that has a fancy Fireball that's supposed to be super smooth. So next week, we are taste testing all the Fireballs, and I will officially have all the Fireball knowledge in this world.
Okay.
And I'll be able to report back on my findings. And they're probably just all going to taste like cinnamon mouthwash.
Okay.
That's what we've learned.
Okay.
So I just thought I'd share that with everybody.
All right. Wonderful.
I also watched Alien Romulus.
Fuck yeah, you did.
Yeah, I did. It's good. It's
not. Okay, yeah, you say your thing.
It's not great. It's good. It's kind of interesting that they paired like Alien franchise with like a teenage horror movie kind of a feel.
So what is give me a title of a teenage horror movie that you're equating it to? Because like immediately I think like Teen Wolf, and it gives me Romulus gives me no Teen Wolf energy.
No. Like where it's an actual horror movie, but all the characters are dumb teenagers that.
Okay, like Friday the 18th.
Friday the 13th?
The 18th.
The 18th?
Yeah, I'm totally right about this.
Yes, definitely the 18th.
Yeah, but like Camp.
Is that one with Eliza Dushku, like it's Into the Cabin or something? Like Cabin in the Woods. Cabin in the Woods. That's a great example there. Or even like the remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003.
Yeah.
Where it's all, I mean, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is just about the teenagers in general.
Yeah, it's about them being dumb, right?
But they're not super dumb in Romulus.
No, but you're right.
But in general in alien movies, the people are dumb. They don't have to be teenagers to be dumb.
That's the only reason the plot can exist.
Yeah.
Because people are dumb.
Yeah, and I think the more like inexperienced to the situation they find themselves in, like in Romulus, the more believable it is. Like in prior ones where it's like the guy that's the botanist that is like he's talking like cutesy talk to the fucking alien snake thing.
He's a snake charmer, bro.
Yeah, he deals with fucking animals and shit all the time. You'd know if it was a snake. You didn't recognize it. You probably stayed the fuck away from it.
That's peak. That's peak alien movie idiocy.
Dumb.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, and they've come back to like in the recent ones, starting in Prometheus. It's been a bloodline through all the Alien movies, but it's really leaned on it now is the AI robot synth people being like really key to the storytelling, right?
Right, yeah.
They need them to push the weight in the history and the meaning behind things, and I get that because it's a pretty clean storytelling device. But now in Prometheus and I forget the second one. Covenant, and now Romulus, it's kind of played the same note 3 times in a row.
Okay.
Which is, I really liked the synth in this one though. It showed more depth of like.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I thought it was a little bit different because he starts out kind of like broken and kind of like, like almost like a younger child sibling that you need to take care of, you know? And he has like some functionality, but not a whole lot. But then.
Yeah,
then he changes.
Yeah, then he gets the fucking SD card of
the SD card.
The SD card of the AI overlord.
Yeah.
And then he's just like beep, boop, boop, beep.
Yeah.
It's a good movie. If you haven't seen Alien Romulus,
it's not groundbreaking. It's not like a 10 out of 10 sci-fi horror movie. I think it's a movie that respects the alien genre. I think it does a cool alien horror movie. You're definitely right. It has that like teenagers making mistakes vibe for sure. It has a lot of amazing miniature photography in it. A lot of exterior spaceship shots are models. A lot of great practical effects. The sets they made are awesome too. Like the spaceship is largely set design. It's not green screen. So I appreciate the artistry that went into the movie as well as like the traditional filmmaking. But yeah, I think it was just a solid B+.
Yes, I definitely enjoyed watching it. I think when I like rewatch that I consider that kind of a trilogy of Prometheus, Covenant, and then Romulus. Even though they don't tell a overarching story, but they do connect in a really kind of satisfying way.
Yeah.
I will enjoy watching this one again. So
nice. Yeah.
I officially have caught up on all my Alien movies.
Excellent. Nice.
Feels good. All right, Scott, what did you paint?
I
see a little vroom vroom.
I painted a 944 Porsche Turbo for Gaslands, and here I'll turn its headlights on.
Oh God, what year is this vehicle?
First of all, I did not plan accordingly.
Whoopies. I wouldn't have known from looking at it at regular angles though.
I have no idea what year it is. Probably the 80s.
Yeah, it looks like I'm gonna guess an 88.
Yeah, it's definitely one of Porsche's more unique cars, along with like the 914 and the 944 that don't have the typical like headlights in the front that most of the Porsches do. But yeah, it looks, I don't know, it doesn't look super recognizable anymore.
No, I wouldn't have necessarily even guessed. Actually, from the spoiler and the back profile, I would have guessed it as a Porsche.
The headlights I fucked up on this morning, actually, so don't look at those. I need to fix that, but it takes forever for that shit to dry. Anyways, I worked on this Hot Wheels car, which is an aluminum die-cast car, and I remember last podcast, or a little before it, when we were talking about it, and I was like, I want to get a plastic kit because I imagine metal kits are going to be difficult to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
I was right. They're fucking not easy, bro.
Oh no.
And I'll go over some of my hardships in the extended version of the podcast for the patrons, but I painted this model in the scheme of the Gulf Oil classic like race car that you see. The Porsche, I think it's a 917 that was a baby blue and an orange, and it's like the most, in my opinion, the most iconic Porsche scheme for a race car that exists. And so I was inspired by that, and so I did an orange and a baby blue color scheme, which I felt like just worked out anyways because there's lots of rust and brown debris and stuff, so it just works for like a hue contrast reason.
Yep.
But lots of fun conversions, the mesh in the windows, all those reinforcing struts, those are all done by me. There's that brass etch in the back window, the buzzsaw blade covers on the driver's side and passenger side seat, the exposed engine, the exhaust coming out of the engine was a 3D kit bash.
Oh.
The model normally is just the engine and then the exhaust, but I combined them and then 3D printed that. I did bend the exhaust pipes on the sides though. That was a fucking pain in the ass, but it did work.
And those are aluminum or?
They are brass.
Brass. Okay.
So I actually had to
You didn't have a tiny 2-scale like brass bender.
I kind of did.
Oh God.
So I looked up some guides because I was really struggling to get good bends. And one advice that I got was you should heat up the metal to anneal it. And annealing is like when you heat it up and let it cool slowly. I think it is. If you heat it up and then you quench it in water, you harden it immediately. Like if you ever watched any like blade making tutorials, the process is heat it, cool it in oil, and then bake it in an oven at a low temp for a long time. That gets you the hardness and also the strength. For me, I heated it and I let it cool down slowly. So I heated it to a high temp with like a torch, like a mini one, and I let it cool down slowly. And that softened it, making it a lot easier to bend. And then I have like these spring forms that I put the pipe into that supports the pipe as it bends, so it doesn't crimp in the bend. So I fucked up on one side, but on another side it worked out better. But originally I wanted to bend the pipes that came out of the engine. And it was impossible to get them all to be perfect curves and to match each other.
Oh yeah.
So I gave up, but that was a better second solution.
It looks natural in how it fits.
Thank you. Yeah.
I see that good old rhino gun on top.
So I don't know what that bit is because it was brown plastic.
It might have been because I had a whole bunch of that stuff. I think I got from Dan, and I gave you I might be from
you might have gave it to me, or Vince gave it to me. I have all these weird brown plastic bits, and I don't know where they came from.
It's from a terrain set from GW stuff. So it was the same set that had like oil barrels and like crates and shit.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's like for a little defense. I don't know, like a little defense section that you could put on as like scatter terrain.
Okay, you're totally right though. It definitely looks like a GW gun. You know, it's a giant rectangular, cube kind of thing. But yeah, that got on top there. A fun like little nitro canister on the back, just hooked right into the gas tank.
You gotta push the NOS.
Yeah, dude. Just like pull the cable and then, like let it go.
You should have free-handed for family on the side of the NOS kit.
For family.
I really appreciate that you did the blue and the orange that really just work so well together, but you went with a light, paler blue.
Yeah.
That it creates the more drama with the dark rust.
Exactly. It's lighter too. Not only is it a hue contrast, it's a value contrast as well.
One of the big mistakes I've made in my weathering experience, especially early on, was that I would use too dark of colors and then put rust over the top. And it's not even that they were dark colors. They have to be light colors. Even like standard mid-tone ranges for most things are not light enough to really create the drama.
Mm-hmm.
And actually probably before you did all this rusting stuff, this probably looked super bright.
Yeah.
And in reality, once you get through the process, then it works.
Yeah.
God, the fucking headlights are so cool.
I know. I got some working headlights. I actually found online someone made 1:64 scale headlights for a 944, which is the scale that Hot Wheels is. So they didn't totally work. I had to remake the flaps that got installed on top of them in styrene because they weren't big enough. They weren't covering the tops of the plastic or the translucent headlights. But once I did that, like it works well. And to me, that is one of the most iconic features of the 944. The headlights that flip up. Yeah.
The first thing that goes wrong in every Porsche,
for sure,
is those lights don't come up anymore.
For fucking sure. Yeah. And somehow they're still working in the post.
Yeah. The thing is, though, probably at this point, they're like, that switch is just like they have duct tape over it. Like, don't put them back down because they're not going to get them back up again.
I should put like some smiley faces on the headlights or something like that. That feels very Mad Max.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I really like that.
The last minute addition was the skull rope down rack on top, which I felt great about. I just drilled a bunch of holes through some skulls and fished some bead cord. Bead cord is amazing to scale rope, I think. Fished it right through there and just super glued it under the hood.
It gives an extra detail that kind of adds up some bulk around right in the front side of that gun. Because if those skulls weren't there, the gun would feel extra floaty.
Yeah.
But here it feels like everything was planned and that it's supposed to sit up a little higher.
Yeah, it's like a ramp up into it, like visually.
The only thing I would have changed, and this is a minor thing, and I wouldn't even think about it while I was making it, was I would actually have cut off the handle of that gun. So it kind of reinforces the fact that it's controlled by the driver and not that there needs to be a dude sitting on the back pulling the trigger.
For sure.
But I would never even thought of that.
That is kind of Mad Maxy though. Some fucking
Yeah.
asshole on top of the car, just like pulling the trigger of the gun.
He just spray. He's like,
Yeah.
he's got a silver spray paint his mouth up first, and then he can crawl out the side window and get in there.
Yeah.
And start shoosting.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I had a ton of fun painting this. If I were to paint an entire little fleet of cars, I would definitely not put as much effort into all of them. But I would love to have like a full Porsche warband for like Gaslands, you know? Have a Macan in there for a bigger, bulkier car and a faster, sleeker like 959 or something like that. But yeah, it'd be awesome. Like put like a rocket on the back of like a Porsche or something like that, you know?
That statement you just said 100% lines up with where I'm feeling for our main topic. So I'm gonna put a pin in it.
Beautiful.
But when you said I would love to have a whole fleet of them, but I wouldn't do them to this ability, that's like you bottled something that I want to touch on later.
Let's touch on it right now. Should we just get into it?
I want to talk real quick about what I painted.
Oh, I forgot. You're also in this podcast with me.
I also sometimes paint miniatures. I sent you pictures because I didn't bring the stuff.
Got them right here.
And then Alex can put them on the screen here. First things first, I want to talk about is a little trophy I painted. So,
oh yeah, there's another picture.
This weekend, there is a convention, a board gaming and wargaming convention in Rochester. It's brand new. It's called Castle Con. It takes place at the historic castle in Rochester.
Oh shit!
Yeah, there's actually two castles in Rochester, but
the one you wanted to buy?
No. I still want to buy that one, but that one's technically a historic landmark that's owned by Mayo Clinic, so I'll never be able to buy that one. But there are other castle-adjacent buildings that I would like to buy, but I'm never gonna have enough money because cost of real estate's stupid. But so it's in the chateau. This is called the Chateau, and it's been used for different things over the years. One being is actually like a fancy old theater, like play theater, and it kind of feels like old medieval theater style on the inside. That's how it's designed. Like the old, if you saw a vampire movie and they're in a theater, like an Interview with a Vampire, that's the kind of theater.
Sure.
So it's very cool.
Is it French? Chateau is castle in French, I think.
Yes. So it's there. This is the first year they're doing it. My buddy Derek, who plays Magic with us at Adepticon, he's the big kind of leader of 40K and just most war games in town. What a champion. He's helping run this, and they have a big 40K tournament going on. And he asked if they 3D printed a trophy for Best Painted Army, if I would paint it. And I said, sure. Why not?
God bless you. God bless you.
Yeah, why not? I don't have any. I've got tons of free time to paint.
Yeah.
But I did. I sat down on Sunday, and I knocked it out in like an hour. And I just primed it, and then I took a whole bunch of bottles of Golden So Flat, my biggest synthetic brush, and I just opened the lids on them, did not put them in a wet palette, did not clean my brush. I just went around and I just was like artsy, putting colors or whatever. One side of the trophy is warm, the other side is cold. There's some real like just dropping thick like globs of paint to create some more drama with the reds and the yellows and stuff. And then I just painted some golds around the rim, and it was fun. It was just fun just spending an hour just not having any plans and wet blending a bunch of stuff and creating some light and some drama around it. So nice. I wanted it just to kind of stand out with color from a distance. So that was it.
These are the cool kind of opportunities that in a perfect world you would always say yes to, but in an imperfect world you can't always say yes to. I've said a no to a lot of collaborative opportunities like this, but there's a painting competition happening in Coon Rapids at a game store out there that I've never been to that I'm going to be a judge for coming up here in March. Awesome. So I'm excited to do that as well, and it's cool to see you also being involved.
Yeah, I'm really glad I did. I'm glad that I made time, and I'm glad that it worked out.
Yeah, looks fine too. Looks totally fine.
I'm meeting with him tonight to hand that off to him, and so then the tournament starts tomorrow. So the other thing I painted is I did all of the cloth on Vizix Scour's massive skirt, and I think I described it in the video, is like trying, for the amount of volume of stuff to paint, it's like painting the dress of a Barbie doll.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah.
From top to bottom, that's probably over 6 inches tall, and it wraps all the way around, and there's so many folds and cracks and cuts and holes and everything. And it was a long process of trying to build texture, build highlights through texture in a very laborious way, because if you want that to feel realistic, you have to do it slowly over many coats, and you have to be like very patient in not rushing things, because just the not having any level of predictability and patterns in the way that you do this, so it feels natural, that the eye doesn't see a bunch of parallel lines, a bunch of lines that are the same length, a bunch of lines that make perfect X's that are just cross-hatching. Like, to make it feel like there's actual cracks and creases and folds over time over this surface, and to build that up, and to have depth of color, so back and forth with steps of adding color without it being, I didn't want it to be a focus of this piece.
Right.
Though.
You don't want to go too bright, right? Yeah.
So I did two main things of contrast here. Actually three, compared to the skin, because I want to push the skin further by what it's surrounding. So the skin is already very vibrant and for the most part smooth, and it uses a warm orangish red tone. So I wanted to contrast that with green. So that orangish red and green are complementary colors. So in general, there's a lot of tones on that skirt, but I want it to feel overall as a greenish tone. So there's number one. Number two is contrast and saturation. I want your eye drawn to the central parts and the impressive parts of the model through the saturation, and therefore I'm going to pull your eye away from this less pivotal part of the model, even though it takes up a lot of the model, by having it desaturated. So there's number two. And then number three is contrast through finish. So comparatively, the skin is much smoother, although there is, if you look closely, there's individual hairlines on there compared to how tattered and noisy that the skirt is. It feels another level of contrast. So that was my goal in all that.
Okay.
And to get it to, again, I'm doing everything to like 90%. And then once everything is painted and together, then I decide where I need to focus, what remaining time, if any, I have to push things.
Okay.
So
okay, you're giving them what they want. I think that this is painted like I would expect a textured GW thing to look like. You have all these nice outlines on all the segments. You have very controlled use of texture. Like what you were saying, I think is an important thing for the viewer to understand is you never want to reveal the method for which for how you made a thing. You want just the suspension of disbelief to be maintained the entire time. So when they look at this thing, it looks like a leather, a ratty old cloak, not the, oh, I saw where he did cross-hatching with his paintbrush, right?
Yeah.
We harp on this a lot. You want to kind of hide the tools with which you use to make the effect.
Yes.
I think you're doing that. I think this is really well executed. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see how long this would have taken.
It took fucking forever. It's at least 50 hours, at least.
Oh my god.
And so in the after party where we talk about something new we tried, I'll break down kind of how I tried to hide the man behind the curtain, how it was achieved. So I'll do that. I do want to talk just one more thing real quickly.
I want to ask a question about that whenever you're done talking.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Is that a hard cast shadow right there on the
underside?
Does it just stop? That's what I'm seeing.
Yep.
Is that intentional?
Yeah.
Is that replicated somewhere else?
There's no place where there's as much of a crispness there. There's a couple places where it is in the deeper folds. If you held it in your hand, you'd see it as well.
Okay.
It does get slightly lighter on the bottom there. I don't know if it shows up in the picture of that fold. There is a lighter bluish green. So it actually, at the peak of those folds, and we're talking about his crotch, yeah. There's a bunch of really hard folds there. So I wanted drama there for some of the darkest darks to be shown there. But in the bottom side of each of those shadowed folds, it gets a little bit lighter to have a little bit of that realistic bounce light. And the thing I did want to talk about was if you find the spots where there's almost like a rusty red color in the deepest shadows, yes. I put those in because I think they're overly dramatized, but I find that in your darkest sections, especially where a fold or a curve comes to where it's kind of parallel with the light source, it gets lighter again. in the deepest shadow. And so in order to create more depth and dimension in showing that something has more 3 dimensions to it, bringing back a light, and in this case, even an interesting kind of complementary color light, adds more depth and more visual interest without it being too distracting. That was my goal for without it being too distracting. So it's not all over the place. It's just in a couple of the deeper folds and different sections. And you can probably see it in some other areas too.
Yeah. I mean, that happens because the convex of a cylinder behaves the exact same way as an outward bending cylinder.
Yep.
At that point in that curve, it'll show you. Interesting.
Yeah. I have spots in the back of it on the bottom where it's just kind of a bunch of ruffled, tattered stuff, where I do the same thing but with a regular light. It doesn't go orange.
Wait, so why does it go orange on the front side?
I put it in areas that are their deepest and darkest.
Okay.
To kind of give this this feeling of more grime and dirt and buildup in those areas, because those are areas that have found themselves where things collect in there and debris, and he's going through these underground nasty rock tunnels and stuff that it'd show more there.
Are you using this green elsewhere on the model?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
I don't know yet.
I don't know yet, man. Well, I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong about this, you've made great progress on the head. Head may be done almost. No, maybe except for the antlers.
Yep. The head is done with the antlers.
You got this big cloak painted to 90. You got this torso and arms painted to 90. Are there other big features left on this model?
The only thing I would call a big-ish feature is his whole shoulder pad thing. Because that's a shoulder pad armor.
Yeah, the thing that covers all the work that you did.
Yeah, exactly. And then he's got the big scarf. So that's the last big section. However, it is multiple different kinds of surfaces. He's got those copper triangle things. He's going to have black armor shoulder pads, and he's going to have that cloth that I'm going to do in a red, in a nasty red. I got some good reference photos of how to paint faded nasty red. So that's the last section there. But because it's smaller individual sections, it will. I feel like I can have more quicker victories with that as opposed to this. Also, I tested out my copper scheme on those triangles on that skirt there. I may glaze in a little bit more of the orange to them too, because I feel a little faded depending on how much I want to do there. But I've got my scheme, my paints down for how to do the copper, so I'm going to be able to knock that out as well.
And then NMM copper, right?
Yeah.
We got asked a really interesting question while we were hanging out with Vince from one of his patrons, because we did one of his patrons hangout. And the question was what version of NMM is the easiest for you to do? And very interestingly, there was a divide in the room. I believe Sam and I think Vince, I know Vince, I think also Sam said that silver NMM was the easiest to do. And I said that a colored NMM was way easier. I can't remember what you said, but I'm pretty sure Ben agreed with me. And I think particularly whenever I've done copper NMM, I just feel like I'm fucking nailing it. I feel like, I don't know why it seems easy, but it feels easy. I know these little triangles aren't much, but did you feel that way? Did it feel difficult to get this result?
Like any time I do an NMM, I second guess myself until the final part, the final peak highlights, and you're like, okay, there it is. There it is. I'm still not like 100% with it, but I felt pretty good because they're all small, the same shape over and over again. And then it was just tweaking it based on its orientation to the light a bit. And then there's also the level of verdigris in there too that can kind of cover up some of that too, right? So you don't have to be perfectly smooth in your blends and your light transitions and stuff. But yes, I think the harder part about silver, or what I would call non-colored metallics, is you have to then bring in more color influences from surrounding materials to make them feel realistic, and you don't really have to do that, at least not to nearly to the same level as gold and copper and brass.
I totally agree. Not that this is an NMM episode, but I feel like silver is much more of a mirror, and like the yellow and the bronze and those colors help to distract from like what maybe you're missing out on if it were to be silver or something like that. So I feel like you're totally right. I feel like there's more nuance when it comes to silver armor.
Yeah. It's also more common to see a high polished silver-based armor than it is to see a really high polished gold, copper, brass.
Yeah,
You know, if you're doing like an extremely reflective full brass breastplate,
just as hard, probably.
that would be just as hard.
Yeah.
And then in some ways it may be even more difficult because how the colors would influence when your base surface already has color associated with it and how to make it execute it cleanly. There's also less references to that in the real world too. So
yeah. There's this, I don't know if you remember this old Mini that I picked for my favorite model a super long time ago, but it was this piece done by Kirill Kanayev that was a Roman gladiator, and he's kind of like a fatter dude. And he has this shin guard that's like super glossy gold. Here, I'm finding it right now. And I remember seeing that and just being like, holy shit, like I've never seen gold NMM like that. And it just kind of like blew me away. Like, it's not a huge detail, but it looks so shiny and like luscious.
Yeah, because it's just like there's a pillar of light that goes straight down the middle.
It's so strong, you know?
And then the outside parts of the shin, you can still see the color, but it's just much more faded. It's the contrast of it being so dark everywhere around it that makes it work.
And the shapes being so strong. But like that, I like that a lot. I think that's cool.
That's a really good example. That leads us to today's main topic, Scott. What are we gonna tackle today?
We're gonna talk about I guess trying to really find your passion in whatever your hobby is. In our case, it's miniature painting, but there are a lot of forces like in life that might make you feel like you need to be doing a certain thing or a certain other thing. And I think it takes a certain bit of wisdom and just knowing yourself to really like just do what you want to do and to chase what you have fun doing. And I think it takes practice, but I also think it takes just you being like kind of aware and knowing what those things are. And so there's a big conversation there about, listening to your muse, finding your mojo that I think we want to discuss today.
Yeah. I think truly this is the singular most important aspect to our hobby, and that's not an exaggeration just for a clickbait title here. It absolutely is finding the thing that drives you, finding the thing that excites you, finding the thing that sets you down at the hobby table or the game table is more important than anything else, because if you don't have that, you're not going to be engaged with it.
You're not going to participate.
You're not going to participate. Going back to World of Warcraft, in World of Warcraft, one of the things that eventually became a really strong value to the game, and the developers of the game, I think, realized this and fleshed it out more over time, was creating a variety of places to feel connected to you in that game that don't have to necessarily stay forever. So let's say I'm really into end game raiding and I want to kill all the hardest bosses and get the best gear. Okay, you can do that. If you want to just level a whole bunch of characters to play every class because you just really enjoyed the organic questing experience up to level 30, well, we need to make sure that the game has enough depth and variance and replayability and fun with that. If you just want to beat up other dudes, well, let's have battlegrounds and let's make sure that they are dynamic and let's make sure that they change and the rewards change and the seasons change. If you want to collect all the different kinds of mounts, let's make sure we add different hard to complete quests with mounts. So in the video game sphere, especially in MMOs, that's something that they really try to do, is to create this wide variety of what excites you in the game. But you're still playing our game. And one day you decide, well, I've collected 4 different awesome mounts. I feel really good about this. I'm feeling like doing some trade skills. I'm still in the environment of this game, but I'm just finding where my passion lies next time I log in and what's getting me excited to log in again. So I want to frame it from a video game perspective because that's almost a one-to-one transition to our tangible hobby journey as well. You don't have to do the thing that got you into the hobby for the rest of the hobby. It doesn't need to be your most primary source of satisfaction and fun and interest. That can evolve and change over time. And in fact, it's probably healthiest if it does, because it could boomerang you back to the thing that got you into it. You could have gotten into 40K because, oh my gosh, the art on this game looks awesome. The world looks awesome. Looking at these big armies on the table look awesome. I want to learn to play that. And that's what gets you in. And you really start collecting and buying the books and figuring it out and playing some games. And then maybe you're like, oh gosh, I want my army to look cool. I want my army to look amazing. So then you go down the path of trying to figuring out how to paint my army that's actually achievable. So that's one side of painting, is painting quickly into something that you're moderately proud of. And then you dig deeper into how complex and how deep the world of miniature painting is. And maybe that leads you into like really focusing on painting the hero models as best as possible. Now I'm getting into more like display painting techniques and really complex things. And then I come back full circle and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm finding I'm loving playing the game more now that I've gotten my handle on painting. And now my main focus is playing in Warhammer tournaments and getting more games and blah, blah. And you see how this is just a giant wave that you're riding. And I think that's the thing I wanted to explore today.
Yeah, and it's tough. It's tough to do that because I don't know if it's like a human tendency, but maybe it's like a sunken cost fallacy where the sunken cost is your time. But humans, and I'll just say me in general, I don't know if all humans feel this way, but when you invest a lot of time in a thing, you don't want to see that time be wasted, or you don't want to feel like it's wasted.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to invest that in doing the thing that you think you're good at, the thing that you've gained wisdom on, you've learned. But sometimes you don't want to do that thing. And so then it feels bad that you aren't spending your time on the skills that you've developed for so long and stuff like that. And so there's a lot of forces that kind of like want to like tell you to not do that. But like I kind of agree with you. Like I feel like in a world where it's not your job, you should really just follow the motivation as best as you can. And I kind of want to share a feeling that I hope everyone can relate to. And it's this feeling of, I want to do this thing. I know I want to do it, but it is so difficult to just get myself to do the damn thing.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be the kind of person that does X. Okay, what's the first step to get on that journey? Well, it's Y. Well, I don't really want to do Y.
I don't want to do Y.
And it's like, fuck. It's like, well, then how am I ever going to get to X? And it's like, I struggle with that weekly.
Yeah.
So you feel that?
Yeah. I feel like this is kind of the big catalyst when we were talking about topic discussions, and this was brought up, was why we think this is really the perfect time for us to do this topic. Is that I think both of us, I felt it from you, and you've talked about it for a while.
Yeah.
And you discussing it with me has actually made me realize that I'm in a.
I infected your brain.
No, you didn't. I mean, yeah, probably. But it made me kind of take a step back and analyze my own situation and this kind of internal fight that I have been having, and kind of help me move forward with it in a healthier perspective, in a positive perspective. And we'll talk about our current situations here in a moment, and our struggles, and what we're doing in our own hobby to try to help this. But I think the first and most important thing is to be able to take a step back and analyze and really be honest with yourself in this, to help you in a positive way move forward, that you're feeling satisfied. And I think the core to a lot of this is just what you talked about. And that is, we feel that when we've been doing one thing, the thing that got us into this hobby, the thing that's excited us most in the last year, 2 years, however long, is we feel like we're drifting further away from that. And so that feels bad. It feels like we're losing like all that work and all that experience that we've gained, that we're basically throwing it away.
Or pause. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. Yeah. You might have developed relationships because of that interest that are like, oh, I'm going to weekly go to a game store to play this game. I'm going to have a paint night with my buddies. It's like, well, they're all in the same place that I was 6 months ago, but I'm kind of moving on. And so it's like, there are also real world things that keep you in place as well.
True. That's absolutely true. I don't know how many times any of us have like stuck to playing a game or playing a video game, or, you know, regular poker night, or blah, blah, whatever it is in your life, that you're just like, I'm still doing this because of the people.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't the people, it's not really my jam anymore.
100%.
You know, that's just life. That's how because we're evolving creatures that always are changing, and that's what makes life exciting and interesting. It's not repeating the same day over and over again like Bill Murray. It's the growth that you have. And I think the biggest thing, the core that I want to hammer home here first before we dig into our specific situations, is that You need to look at this from a positive instead of the natural negative feelings that we have with this. Instead of feeling like I'm moving away from enjoying painting models for my game, don't look at what you're turning away from. You're actually turning toward something else. And that something else, the angle that your path is now taking you is towards something. Yes, it's naturally going to move you away from something, but focus on the positive, the thing you're moving towards. And try to remind yourself that all the work that I've done thus far has led me to this point, and it's gotten me into a better position to enjoy this new point. And I'm not losing all that old stuff. It's not like, oh, I'm not painting my hardest anymore like I did 6 months ago. But all that painting your hardest made your quick painting so much better than it would have been otherwise. Because you can do things quicker, or there's techniques that you're much faster at that you can do quicker now, and that kind of thing. So try to remember that you never lose how to ride the bike forever. You're just focusing on unicycles.
Exactly. And the other thing that I think that makes it difficult, I agree with what you're saying, but there's also the other totally valid mentality of like, I equate often to exercising. You know, most people, maybe when they first begin exercising, they don't actually enjoy it, but they know they're doing something good for their body, and that encourages them to do it. And people often have the same mentality with their hobby. It's like, I know I want to learn NMM, and sucking at it for 6 months is not fun. It is not fun. Sometimes maybe it's fun when you get those little victories when you discover things.
Yeah.
But for the most part, the grinding cannot be enjoyable. But it's like, I'm going to keep doing it because I know at the end I'm going to get this carrot. And like, there's those two mentalities. There's like the follow the muse, do what the fuck I want to do, and also the buckle down and figure it the fuck out because I know I'm going to appreciate it at the end. There's the golden demons of the world, right?
Right.
It's the same thing. And it's like, how do those things coexist, you know?
Right.
Maybe you don't need to think about how they coexist. Maybe you'll know when the time is right to like really invest in something and work through it, and other times when you're just going to go with the flow.
Right.
Maybe that's what it is. I tend to overthink things.
Yeah, well, that's a legit variable in this.
Sure.
I think especially in the world of being able to watch videos and consume content about things to get yourself excited or interested in something, then the actual execution, it's taking your own free time to invest in that is a bigger lift, you know, and that's definitely an issue that you've got to deal with. However, you just have to just like when you had the exercise example or the losing weight example or whatever, it's like when you start to see or feel changes, right? That's when you're like, oh, okay. Because if you work out every day for a week, or you try to eat healthy and work out, get move around every day for a week, you're not going to see a lot of changes. But by week 3, you're like, oh gosh, my commitment to this is going to show. But we're ever in a world of more drive for instant gratification, and that's what doom scrolling will do, and that's what just watching someone else execute on something and achieve something gives you your own tiny endorphin hit of instead of you doing it yourself. It's easier to just kind of like fucking sidestep that and not have to do it yourself, because you can get miniature versions of that by living vicariously through somebody else's stuff.
Wow. I feel so convicted right now. I feel like I shouldn't watch YouTube ever again. I feel like I like, not because you're making me feel bad, almost as like a human experiment. Like if I just eliminated all of those easy sources of dopamine in my life, what would my brain just naturally want to do? Would it create a greater drive to create that experience for myself, or would I do something else? I have no idea, but I'm curious what that would look like if you just flat out removed all of that from your life.
Interesting. I don't know, and I think it's actually a really viable experiment. I think the bar that you need to feel to hit, to feel that level of satisfaction, to feel that, the good dopamine that wants you to keep moving would be lowered. Because you're not inundated with all the innate ineptitude you feel in yourself by seeing other people's success.
Yeah.
You know, so you're like, I'm still nowhere near Flameon's ability to make awesome reflective NMM. So looking back at mine, I'm like, I thought it was going to be okay, but now I feel like I'm worse off than I was when I started. Like, comparing yourself is the kind of the arch enemy of your own joy and satisfaction, of your own journey, is comparing yourself and looking at that. And it is damn near impossible. None of us are enlightened beings. It's damn near impossible to look at somebody else that's so much further along on their journey than you are, and to not compare, and to not feel like, I suck. Why even try? But if you were to try to remove that from yourself, I think you'd feel more joy in your small victories than you do now.
Yeah, they wouldn't become failures by comparison. They'd become your own personal victories, right?
Yeah.
That's definitely a possibility. There's one thing that I want to talk about when it comes to trying to follow your muse, because I've been trying to do this for like years now, but I don't do it well. So there's a video that I made called Finding or Following Your Muse, where I paint Queen Guinevere.
Mm-hmm.
And the video starts by me describing that I'm, in the process of painting my Dark Eldar army, and I fucking hate it. I'm not enjoying it. It doesn't look good. I don't want to keep progressing, and so I literally just push it all to the side. And I just recently watched the A24 movie, The Green Knight, and I wanted to paint a King Arthur model, so I painted Queen Guinevere. And that's the whole vibe of that video. And in that video, I go over 5 different projects where I bought these items because I was inspired by something and wanted to make a video on it, and they never made it into a video. And this happens to me all the time, and it even kind of happened on this thing. Inspiration strikes at a certain time. I prepare for the video. The video is planned for a month later. The month comes up, and I don't give a shit about that thing anymore.
Yeah.
And so the inspiration has gone. And so what I'm learning is that when I feel like that, I have to jump on it right away, like in a day or 2 days, because then it's going to last the entire time I'm doing the project, or close to the entire time.
Yeah.
And then something else is going to start to reinforce me wanting to finish, like getting close to finishing a project, right? When you can see a finished model, for me, it's fucking easy. Like I sprint for it, and it feels good, and I love that. So if the motivation runs out by that point, it doesn't matter. But that is what I learned time and time again, that when I get excited about a thing, I need to jump on it immediately. And that is really difficult when you're in the middle of making a video or something like that. So it's sometimes impossible, but if it is possible, the sooner the better, as soon as possible.
Yeah. Like when I'm working on, real world example for me currently is working on the stuff for my Golden Demon. When I'm doing videos that are not about the Golden Demon, I almost feel like I'm out of body experience. Like I'm separated from those. Like I know I need to, and it's not that I don't have joy or whatever, but I'm also like in the back of my head, I'm like, you need to stay fucking locked in, and you need to be stuck in the cockpit, and don't get pulled too far out for this other single video about painting the Krieg dude on horse, or this Eldar that I'm gonna go home and start painting today. Like I appreciate and enjoy my time with it, but I can't get too invested because of the fear that I will then lose some of my momentum and some of my desire of this long-term project. Because like you, if I take a half step away from it, I am scared. I'm not going to go back to it. Or I'm not going to go back to it with the same vigor and intensity and excitement and passion. And if I do that, what was the whole point of all these hundreds of hours if you're not going to do that? So yeah, I feel that.
So I have that long-term project with trying to paint a 40K army with Jay, and I love Jay and I love his enthusiasm, but I am not the same kind of person as Jay. And if there was no collaboration, I would not paint these fucking Dark Eldar. They are the lowest thing that I care about right now. But I care so much about my collaboration with Jay and the cool opportunity to make those videos. And also, I really care about having painted armies of things. That is also a huge thing that personally I just want. But if it's 40K, it doesn't matter if it's 40K or if it's Gaslands. Who cares what it is? I just like to have completed armies for games. I think that's a cool thing to strive for. But yeah, if I was totally following my muse, I would not paint a Dark Eldar for the next 3 months.
I guess we could turn this into here's our little advice corner.
Don't commit to anything.
Yeah. Do not over purchase.
Yes.
And over plan.
Yes.
Too much.
Give space for inspiration.
Right. Because the more the height of those boxes are stacked up, the more at some point you're going to look over at those boxes and see all that you haven't done, and that's going to suck a little bit of your soul. And you're going to be like, all you do is see all of it and all that it's going to ask of you, and that will eat you.
Yes.
If you're going to start a Space Marine army, buy one cool hero, maybe one vehicle, maybe one box of Marines, buy one thing. And that passion will see you through that project. And then when you're done, even if you're close to done, as your reward to yourself, you're like, I'm 80% done with this. I'm still loving these Marines. Then reward yourself by buying another one. Don't buy it all at once. I know you save more money, but it's not saving money if half those boxes never get painted.
Yes.
So because you may decide that's like, oh, there's that. And then it's like, oh my gosh, actually, I saw this video of somebody painting a Tyranid, and God, I really think that would be pretty sweet. So then paint one Tyranid after your Marines. You're not hurting anyone's feelings.
Yeah, who's keeping the score?
No, yeah, if you are. If that's what it's exciting for you, then jump to that next thing and just do one model of it. And then you by the time you go through one little project, you'll be surprised how, whether it's some outside influence, whether it's just the painting process through that, or whatever else thing inspires you, there'll be a next thing. And as long as you keep moving forward without feeling inundated of the requirement of the weight of things and time required, the more you're going to actually just enjoy the process in the moment instead of feeling like you're required to do something. It's a hobby. The last thing you want to do is feel required. Everything in life about being an adult is about things you're required to do.
Yes.
I'm required to pay my taxes. I'm required to go on and pay my bills and to pay my car payment. I'm required to go to work. I'm required to get my eye exam every year, because if I don't get my eye exam every year, then my hospital will say, then we can't let you get new glasses. And if I go get my eye exam, then I've got to go spend another $170 out of my pocket, and it's fucking health insurance anyway, just for them to say my prescription is the same. It's like I'm just feeding the fucking machine for me to get a new pair of glasses. Sorry, I may be going through this right now.
Yeah, that went somewhere that wasn't necessarily related to the topic, but also very, very relatable.
Yeah, all these things you have to do, right? I have to feed my dog. I mean, these are all things you have to do in your daily life. And so the little free time that you have should not be inundated with things you feel you have to do, because that's the shitty part of life, is the things you have to do. These are the things you're choosing to do. So don't put it on yourself to make it a thing you have to do.
Right.
Wherever your passion pushes you, that's not a have to, that's a choice. And feeling like ownership in your life with the choices that you make is in and of itself a victory and reward, and it gives you positive mental reinforcement. It helps your emotional health to do that, to have ownership in your life, that you have control over certain things, and let that be part of your hobby.
Yeah. I think while you were speaking, I was like, is this a thing that only like maybe we're dealing with because we have like a job with over planning and stuff like that. But then I immediately thought about how people buy an entire army in one go, and then you fucking said it, and I was like, that is how you over plan in the hobby, and how you get imprisoned by past you. And I was doing this business coaching with this guy, and he said this thing that just blew my mind. And it was like I have all these expectations of myself because of what I was able to do in the past. And it was like, you are not the same person as you were 5 years ago. And this is true for you too, listener. Is like, you change, and you should allow yourself to change. And that is a natural and okay thing. And part of how we wrote back into a tangible example is 6 months ago, you thought you were going to paint a full Space Marine army, but turns out 6 months later, you're a different person with different interests and different problems to deal with and juggle with painting. And it's like, just don't make that mistake of over planning and over committing to any specific things.
I think why this is kind of entrenched in our hobby in general is that, one, from a marketing perspective, specifically Games Workshop, but also any hobby product company, they want you to preload your investment, because they want you to spend up front and buy into the hype, because then they're maximizing your purchasing.
Yeah.
And understanding that's the way that capitalism works is fine. but that doesn't mean you have to follow it yourself all the way through. But like, there's a reason why most paint ranges, or a lot of them anyway, one, you save more money by buying the entire paint set, or two, like, you can't buy individual colors, or they're harder to find individual colors at your local store outside of a couple of brands. And so I've got to preload my investment of $200 to $400 on this whole paint set.
Gotta make it worth my time and my money.
Yeah. And so then you're like, whoosh, I have this entire paint set. And it's like, I don't know about y'all, but in any paint set that I own, 50% of the colors I could throw into the fucking void and I'd never miss them. But the problem is, I don't know which colors those are. Maybe I would need them later. I better not. I better have them all. I don't know the time that I'm going to need this, so I got to get it all. I think it's easier with paints, just be like, well, I have one paint set or two paint sets, and you can feel like you have enough colors. It's with the models, it's a little bit trickier because I feel like less weight by the tools that I have. Other than the fact that it's like, it takes up space in your house. It takes up money that you spent on all this stuff. It's kind of, it sitting there is kind of its own weight on your shoulders to utilize it. I've committed to doing this. And now I'm not feeling the painting side very much right now. And now I feel terrible. So I just don't want to look at it. I don't want to be in the same room and that kind of thing.
Yeah, the opposite starts to happen of what you want. The motivation totally goes away, and it turns into you. Like, what's the opposite of motivation? I can't think of the word right now, but you want to do it even less because there's this association with guilt.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, oh man, when I look at it, I feel like, oh, there's the weight of all my purchase choices that I made, and me not committing to them. I'm just gonna watch a YouTube video. It's easier to forget about it. Man, I mean, what a mind fuck.
There is a positive to things like looking at people's paint jobs on Instagram and watching YouTube videos or watching shorts. There is a value in that, in that, like, it keeps you at arm's reach and still connected to the hobby. That's like, whether I just don't have a lot of free time right now. We just had a new baby, or work is crazy, or this, that, and the other, and I can't connect with the thing the way I want to, or the way that I should want to, but just today I'm not feeling it. But it still keeps it at arm's reach, and it still keeps you, that line is open.
Yeah.
So there is value there. The issue is when it comes into that, like, that supplements actual time for your hobby, right? It's like, instead of spending an hour painting, I spent an hour doom scrolling other people's paint jobs. It's like, well, that's one of the things that I really, when I look back at, one of the things that I really think is value in this podcast is, we would love it in an ideal world. For me, every one of you that is listening to this podcast is listening while you're hobbying, because you get to hang out with us, you get to connect, and you also are spending time on your own hobby. Even if you're just like, I'm just cleaning mold lines, or I'm just clipping stuff off of sprues, or I'm just organizing my bits, I'm doing whatever. You're connecting with your own sense of satisfaction of thing you're doing in the hobby. Maybe you're list writing. Maybe you're just looking up, whatever, cool paint jobs for a Skaven piece, and while you're building them, while you're listening to us, you can do that, and that's good too. I'll often have, the majority of the time that I spend consuming other people's miniature painting content is while I'm hobbying myself, especially in those tasks that don't require me to have a ton of focus on just what I'm painting. I do it a lot when I'm building models. I do a lot when I'm organizing my painting stuff. I do a lot when I'm figuring out what color scheme I'm going to paint this, and I'm pulling paints off the rack and stuff. I do that, and I feel like that's like, oh, I get to passively stay engaged, but I also feel like I'm accomplishing a little something too.
Yeah, and I feel like we definitely want that vibe for this podcast. The hobby is a very solitary activity, and oftentimes, because it is a niche thing, you might not have friends who do it with you. And you might not even have a local game store. Like, we're pretty blessed with many. Well, I am. You have one in Rochester. Yep. But people will often do this alone, and so we want to be your hobby companions while you're doing that, at least in your ears, at the very least. So yeah. So I don't know. Should we talk about? I would love to ask the question of you, if you could follow your hobby muse right now, what would it look like?
Okay. So this is the part of the podcast where we dig into our own personal grimy situations.
Oh, I don't hope it's not grimy. Mine's not grimy.
I don't think it's grimy. I think there is a point where I would have looked at it as grimy, and then I'm guessing there's a number of listeners out there that if they take a step back and analyze their situation, they may look at it in the negative. We're going to look at it in the positive.
I'm so concerned with what you're about to say right now.
Okay. I have recently come to the realization, this is just current day, John.
This is therapy right now, guys.
I have zero interest in playing Warhammer.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
All war games or just Warhammer or?
Full army Warhammer.
Okay.
40K, 2,000 points, Age of Sigmar, 2,000 points.
Okay.
I'm not interested. And by proxy, I'm not interested in the weight that requires of me to paint to play that.
Yeah. Also, right now you aren't.
Right now.
And that is a thing that I think is also important.
That's the key words in this statement.
Because in 5 years, maybe you'll be into that.
Yeah. Or a month. I don't know. Like there's unknown variables can happen. Like they just fucking showed these new death models. They got fucking Prince Vordry on that nasty dragon.
That fucking nasty bald head, dude. Oh my god,
dude, that Vordry on dragon is hot. Dude. Like that.
Do I need a third dragon? I think I do.
Dude. It's a new dragon though. It don't count. It's new. You might need two of them because one of them you can have riderless, and one of them you can have with Princey V on top.
Dude, I love Princey V. Anyways, yeah, those models look fucking hot.
Yeah, so that may get me to be like, oh, I already got a bunch of painted Soul Blight. I'm just gonna add new Princey V, and I'm gonna be excited. But
that's the thing. It's like you could paint an AOS model once every 4 months, and in 3 years have a finished army.
Mm-hmm.
That's, if you don't have any events you're doing or stuff like that, then it doesn't matter how fast you do it. But yeah, okay, cool. So
not if you're an idiot like me and Plixcaven, and so you need 80 clan rats. The math don't work that way, and that's part of the road that I've gotten to. I just have come to the realization that for me currently, I don't have the time, or I'm not going to prioritize the time in playing the game. It's like that is a choice I'm making. There's not enough of a drive or enjoyment that I get out of my time having played those games that makes me realize it's something that I really enjoy doing.
Okay.
And that's the situation. And hobbying for that, and I've done a number of full army painting challenge videos. I painted a couple of armies in my day.
Yeah.
And I'm in the midst of painting a Skaven army. And I just came to the realization, like, the quality level that I was putting into those models was not sustainable for my sanity.
Yeah.
For long term. Plus, pushing over to painting for Golden Demon, like, that just took all of my time, and therefore I took too many steps away from the momentum I had with the Skaven army, that I was just like, oh, I had this realization, and I'm like, I'm really happy when I look at those guys all together in the case, all those Skaven painted to the level that I painted them to. I'm like really happy and proud of those, and I really think that they look cool, and definitely the coolest looking army I've painted thus far, and I'm really proud of that. But right now, all I see is the weight of how many more clan rats I need to paint. And that's not happy for me. And that I'm connected to is like, I don't really care about playing the game right now.
That's
so what's the point?
Yeah, it's like I don't want to play 40K. It's just like, why am I painting this army?
Right.
But I do like having a finished army anyways, but I definitely feel you on that.
Yeah. So that's where we differ a little bit, where it's like at this point in your journey, I feel like you were really, I don't want to say prioritize, but really get the satisfaction out of having a painted faction for all these different games, right?
Yeah, or just gaming adjacent stuff in general. Yeah, definitely that is the mojo I've been going on right now. But not to harp on you, but you didn't answer the question exactly. What if you could go home right now and there was zero expectation from YouTube, zero expectation from Golden Demon, from any kind of game? What would you hobby on? Would it be painting? Would it be something totally different? What would it be?
Well, first of all, I did make the mistake of downloading Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, which is a classic MMO that's in pre-alpha right now. It's so goddamn good for grognards like me.
Can I just say so PoE is free. Is it free? No, it wasn't free. I bought it and then returned it because it's gonna be free later. But I bought it and played it for a second, and I was like, this is what I want Diablo to be.
Path of Exile 2 is so good.
Yeah, I played the small boss right in the beginning.
Yeah.
And you need to dodge his abilities. And I'm like, that simple thing gave me a gamer boner. I'm like, okay, I can't wait for this game to come out free to play. I'm 1,000% going to play PoE2.
Yeah, that PoE2 is yeah. The dodge roll is so key, and like it is just enough that changes the whole game. Anyway, I stopped playing that because I downloaded Pantheon. But that's not it. I actually have to be very careful with myself and not get into that too much with Golden Demon season happening. But from my own, and that this is kind of like may seem like a cop-out answer, but it's truly where I'm finding my most fun, and I feel like I have for a while and just haven't really recognized it, is painting one model that excites me, that I don't care about what it is in the game, what faction it is using it. And I get a lot of comments. A lot of people are like, are you going to finish the rest of the box? Are you going to finish the whole army? Are you going to paint a whole thing? I got a lot about that for my Krieg model last time. And I'm like, I painted one. I really enjoyed learning about the aesthetics, figuring out how colors work on the model, and just having the weight lifted off my shoulders of like just enjoying this great sculpt in a unique model, in a unique faction, and then looking at it on the shelf and saying, I did that. So if it was me and I had nothing attached to it, I would paint one model from every different faction in Warhammer 40K and Age of Sigmar and just do a different one, just swapping out from now until I change what my passion is. Because then I get to feel, it's so different when you paint a Necron versus when you paint a fucking Troggoth. Like it's totally worlds different, and so it feels like every time it's fresh and you're having new puzzles that you need to solve, or learning what works and what doesn't, or what you like and what you don't like, or evolving your own painting because the model changes so much every time. I just love that variety in well-sculpted models. It doesn't have to be Warhammer. Warhammer is just a great example of having such a wide variety, and it seems like they have new models that are really cleanly done every so often. So if it was me today, I wouldn't care about the game. I would just paint the next singular cool model that caught my eye.
Cool.
Take it home.
Was that the comment that was related to me saying if I painted more of these, it wouldn't be to this standard?
Exactly.
Okay, yeah.
Where I'm at right now, if I did what you did right there, I would be so happy, and it's so fucking cool, and I would let that live and not have to put the weight on it. Now, if doing that, my passion for the next singular model I was going to paint was like a SUV version of that. Like that's what I want to do next. Do it, because that's where your passion lies. And if that, trickle trailed to having 6 in a row or 6 over the next 6 months or whatever, and then you have one, awesome. Or you're like, oh, it takes 5? I've painted 3. That's getting me excited to see how close I am.
Right, and then that takes over.
Yeah. So I think the bloodline of what I'm saying in my specific example of just painting one single thing to appreciate a model and being able to, when it's done, there's no extra weight or expectations on it, is just that.
Interesting. Wow. I never thought about that. Like the expectation that comes with finishing a model. Mm-hmm. That's not something that has really ever occurred to me, but that could definitely like kind of sour the good feeling of finishing a model and enjoying the paint job and what you did with it. Interesting. Do you find that happens pretty often with you? Like you paint a thing and you're like, is it YouTube related where it's like, I'm going to put this online and people are going to ask about, the army and I'm going to have to like disappoint them? Or is it an internal monologue thing?
Whoa, gosh, that's a good question. I guess I hadn't really thought about that. It's probably a little of both. I think because a large amount of the viewership for YouTube miniature painting are people that are game-focused, army-focused, painting faction.
I like how you said that. They're game-focused. They're not necessarily people that play games. But I've been noticing a lot of content that's framed around the game, but is actually painting videos are really interesting, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Actually, that's the direction I'm taking with my next Eldar video.
Yeah.
It's like, this still applies to you if you're a game-focused player, because there's something you can take out of this and just having the fun in the painting side, because that is side of it, even if you're a game-focused player. But yes, I think that's it. And so there's a certain kind of expectation, and probably a big part of it is like me understanding that it's there, and then I put it on myself. And then I feel like every time I paint a single thing out of a whole box of the new Sisters of Battle box or the whomever box, I paint a single thing out of it, that I feel like there's a level of expectation. Largely, I put it on myself, and part of it's for my history of having done full armies for videos, you know, and
which is insane.
It's so dumb. It's so dumb.
That is so insane, especially a 40K army, bro. 40K for some reason is like 50% to 70% larger than AOS in an entire video, like you did with that. You did twice, Night Lords and with the Robot Men.
I've done it with Night Lords. I've done it with the AdMech. I've done it with Boner Boys. Those are the 3 I recall. And then I redid it again with Night Lords after I didn't like how they looked, and I redid the whole army and just basically added. That wasn't quite the same because strictly just like getting all the base coats on in an entire army is 70% of the time. Just getting paint on. And then it's that last 30s where you can really bump it up a fuckload, you know? So that's that. So yeah, I just want to paint one thing, and that's where I'm driving. And I honestly think that I've gotten a lot of comments in the last 6 months-ish on my channel of like, wow, you've really improved as a painter. And I don't really feel that. I'm like, I don't feel like I've gotten worse, but I don't feel like I've made big strides. But I also am like, oh, maybe it's because I'm just enjoying a single model more and really expressing myself and trying to learn how I enjoy painting and having fun with color and light, that I'm really embracing painting that model, which leads to a higher quality result than this feeling of just trying to power through a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Here's what I'll say about your painting. So a long time ago, maybe even 3 years ago, we discussed each other's personal styles. And like you told me what mine was, and I told you what yours was. And it was actually a really positive experience for me to hear that. And I think if we were to do that again, I would have such different things to say about you. So I think growth comes in multiple ways. I think you can go down one tech tree and like get really fucking good at it, or you can spread out. Even in the world of display painting, you can spread out and experiment. And I feel like you have spread out, and you found a thing that you like a lot, and you're like halfway down the road of full teching into this like way of painting. And I can see it, and I can see it getting better every single time you do it. So I think you're getting better for sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then I go do a Golden Demon project and completely don't really paint like that.
You don't paint like that, yeah.
And that's what I've been feeling on this. I'm like, oh, I feel like I could paint this better if it was more true to the kind of the groove that I've been doing lately.
Yeah.
I've evolved over the last 2 years. But I also don't think it would perform better with the judges.
Yeah. And you can definitely paint good enough in that other method as well to compete. So it's not like you're like losing anything anyways. No. But
and I do think painting in this style that I've been painting for Golden Demon, which is a lot more crunchy, I guess, for lack of a better term.
More technical.
Yeah, crunchy and technical and almost kind of obvious. I don't want to mean to say it in a negative way, but that really pushes you from a technical aspect in a brush control aspect that will stay with you and will help you grow no matter how you paint. So
yeah,
I still feel like I could still push the rock up the hill a little bit. But
yeah, it's like the exercise of the hobby. Like painting like that is like your bench press kind of almost.
Yes, you gotta keep doing that. Okay, so that's what I would do, and that's kind of how I've changed. And we're gonna get into Scott the gamer.
So I mentioned how I was a little too slow to jump on the motivation for this, and like halfway through, like when I sent you that pic of it being done and converted, I was like, sick. Can I stop now?
That level of satisfaction has peaked.
Yeah, I didn't want to paint it, but the painting was like way easier than the conversion anyways. But I've been thinking a lot about what I want my channel to look like, what kind of content I want to make. If I make 4 videos on my channel a month, what's the makeup of those videos? Is 2 of them painting, 1 of them gaming, 1 of them miscellaneous? Like, I'm trying to figure out what that looks like. Because I do well with rules and with restriction. And I feel like when I gave myself any amount of time to finish a video, that kind of really fucked me up. And like, I don't know. But then when I went back to making weekly content, I replaced a lot of those negative feelings with with kind of like a stress, but kind of like a good stress.
Yeah.
Like I'm racing and it feels good kind of thing.
You have all these little check boxes throughout the week.
Yeah, and it feels good.
It feels good to check the checkbox.
It does. And if you feel productive and like even if the videos don't do well, you still feel like you're making the most of your time. And so in that same vein, if I'm going to make 4 videos a month, what's the consistency of the topics going to be? And so I started to think about, okay, like what if like every month I was like, okay, this is the Dune month. We're going to paint a Dune display model. We're going to paint a Dune miniature wargaming model. We're going to talk about a Dune game, and we're going to do another Dune thing. Like what? It's like, okay, next month's going to be 40K. We're going to do the same thing. And I was like, okay, I don't like that a lot. That's a little bit too restrictive.
The sound alarms went off in my head. I'm like,
yeah.
No, because one, if they start not doing well at the beginning of the month, you are invested in it for the whole month, and you just feel like the ship is going down fucking Titanic. You don't want to do that. And two, back to the thing we just talked about. What if your passion for Dune month is completely dry?
Yeah, you're right.
After week 1,
it's too much. It was too much planning. But in thinking of that idea, I was like, okay, what would be my video for a Dune game? And I was like, there's no Dune game. And I was like,
Dune Imperium.
Well, there is. There's no Dune miniature war game. And I was like, I could just fucking make one. Oh. And that sounds like way more work than what I'm describing right now. But in my research for game design, one thing that a lot of people said was like, if you don't want to make a whole game for yourself, take your favorite game and just tweak it, just reskin it, make a module for it, make a campaign for it, like use the rules, add on to it. And I was like, okay, we can do that. And so I started to Google around, and I was like, if you were to make Dune into a rule set, what game would you use? And the answer that came up very often was Xenos Rampant, which is apparently part of a whole series of Rampant style games. And this one's for sci-fi. And so I reached out to my Osprey games guy, and I asked him to send me the rule book, and he did. And I am super excited to just dig into this rule set, read the book. I like to read rule books. I like to read rule books on the way home to Wisconsin in the car. I don't really know. It's fucked up. But I just am interested.
You're the first person that's ever uttered that phrase. But sure.
Dude, I don't know. Like, okay, in your friend group, you have some person who is like always the rules explainer.
Yeah.
That's my fucking job.
Yeah.
And one time I asked Amber to do it because she had a game that she wanted to play that was like she was excited about. And she had a really hard time taking the words in the book and then translating them to a group of people to understand. And I was like, oh, maybe this is like a skill of mine. So that feeling has made me even dig deeper into this. I'm a rules reader kind of guy. But anyways, I like to see the ideas people have for games. And so I am super hyped to go through this book and to reskin it for Dune and for all the things that I think are appropriate for that world. And I'm afraid because my plan for February and March is to paint Dark Eldar until I fucking die. And except for one video. I'm going to paint the cheerleader in February. And I'm afraid that in April, when we get back from Adepticon, I'm not going to want to do this anymore. You know, it's going to have gone. And so it's like, do I do this right now? Do I make the future Scott more stressed, having less time to paint Dark Eldar before Adepticon? Or do I prioritize present me and just do this thing that I think about every day?
Yeah. I can only give my personal experience and kind of revelation that I've had over the last like year and a half.
Yeah.
And that is once I got my feet under me in the content creation kind of space and got a rhythm and figured out, you know, that like, oh, this, you know, the sky isn't falling if I don't have 12 videos planned out for the next, 6 months or whatever. And you feel a level of confidence in your ability to knock out videos. And this is probably parallel with the goody peepees in your hobby itself. It's kind of the thing that we've been preaching thus far about just finding your muse in the moment. Was that I find the less I structure and plan future videos, the more I actively enjoy the hobbying and the video creation of the one I'm working on right now. Because when the next one comes, okay, my video drops today. Today is when I have to finalize. I could be thinking through and get inspired or kind of figure it out for the next one. But like today I get to make my decision on this next video because what is exciting me now? Because I know I can technically execute on making the video. It's about what's gonna make my next week fun at work. Because if it's not fun at work, why the fuck are we doing this job?
Yeah, right.
You know, it's supposed to be fun, and the hobby's supposed to be fun. And if we're not having fun in the videos we put out, it's gonna show. And that's what this hobby is about. Is about having fun. So if you watch a video about the hobby, it should feel fun too. And so this level of like energy and passion should be present. And so as little as possible do I try to plan as far out as you're talking about for April. The times that I have found over the last 2 years specifically, when I looked back through my calendar of videos and video topics, the ones I have an initial gut reaction looking at my own thumbnail of ones that I can tell you I didn't have as much fun with that. Every single one, without a step, every one that has not been fun for me to make was one that was planned far in advance.
Okay.
Because I was like, I forced myself into doing that. And sometimes it's sponsorship of somebody wanting you to paint their thing. And so you plan it out for 3 months in advance. And there's other variables in play there. It's like, I don't really care about the model or whatever. But that's consistent for me anyway.
That's interesting because I feel like past John, if I came to past John and I was like, okay, I have this army, I have this amount of time I have to paint it. It's like I feel like your strategy would be like, okay, figure out how much you got to paint a week, and then stick to that schedule.
Yep.
You know, and just by doing that, I have now determined my release schedule for however long that takes, whatever it is.
I think going through that mental exercise again for anyone that's going to start,
I think it works.
Start a hobby, or start an army or start a project for a war band or a kill team or whatever, and having that conversation with yourself up the front end. Here's how quickly I paint. Here's how the level of execution I'm trying to achieve on this. Let's then look at the calendar. If I do the math, it's going to take me roughly this amount of time. You have not yet committed, but you've done enough of your research to have a realistic understanding and expectation of yourself and to be able to set milestones for yourself to see if you're on track. And then say, am I willing to do that? Am I interested in doing that? Is there an off ramp if I get halfway through and be like, hit the fucking ripcord, I'm out of here. I can always come back to it and finish it later. But with the videos thing, you have to do the same thing. You're like, okay, if I do this, and this is what it's going to take for me to finish this Eldar army, and am I willing to do that? Being honest with myself, do I think I can achieve that and not hate going to work every day?
So what if you didn't do that and School Scott is rearing his ugly last-minute head, and you have 2 months until your deadline, and you have too much to fit in that deadline. Now what do I do?
You want the honest answer?
No, I don't.
I got a good answer for you.
I don't want it.
You take the two things that are interesting and that excite you for the rest of the army, and you do 2 videos on those, and everything else is fucking base coded and it's blurry in the background. I swear to God, that's what I would do. Because it's still showing my full 2,000 point army.
Yeah.
It's still all technically painted. All those things that I do not care about, or already did a video on painting those kinds of guys, or something that's basically those kinds of fucking guys. You still get the experience.
Yeah.
And you still get to play with it, and they still got to learn and go through the journey with you, and they got to see the important things that are interesting, that are exciting, that are passionate for you. You going through the bullshit does not actually help anybody.
Yeah. I think the one thing that's kind of a problem for me is when I start painting a model, somewhere in the middle, I like go into a hobby trance.
Oh,
and I just like do whatever the fuck I want to do, I'll put a decal on. I'll start doing freehand. I'll start getting really specific about like blending with an airbrush or like whatever it is. And then like I look up and I'm like, I have 3 more Raiders to paint and I'm not going to paint them like this. And it's like, what am I doing with my time? But the thing is like when you get in that hobby trance, that's like a good thing. I want to be there.
Yeah,
but I can't be there. I cannot. I need to move fast. And for me, that's hobby death.
Option the second. Option the second. Okay? Because this is about 2,000 points, right?
Yeah, it's like, yeah, exactly.
Okay. You find something that isn't in your list right now that's cool that you want to paint, like that big fucking ship that's like 800 motherfucking points.
Bro.
Paint one of those fuckers and you're done.
Bro, so when my buddy, Scott Hyman, who was making the list for me, I was like, Scott, we're going to use all the things I've already painted, number one. And number two, everything else, as much, like the highest point of models as possible. We need to drop this model count as much as possible. So we kind of did that. We didn't do a Void Raven Bomber because I don't want to paint another jet right now.
Right.
But that probably would have been good to add on. But yeah, so I think that is going on. But man, it's still so many fucking models.
There's another asterisk though. It's like least amount of models, but also not 3 of the same big model.
Yeah,
that's fucking death. I would rather paint fucking 40 little dudes than 3 of those motherfuckers.
Yeah,
those things take forever.
They do take forever. Yeah.
And you already have put your blood, sweat, and tears in going through one of them. Like I don't envy the person that put as much effort in that you did on that to try to replicate that 2 more times. You're going to kill yourself. Don't do that.
That was definitely another example of a thing where I was like super hyped to do it, where like the gas just ran out by like the 60% mark. And I'm like, fuck.
But you did see it to the finish line and you have something to be proud of in that thing.
Absolutely.
Looks fucking badass.
Absolutely. Even though the base is like dog shit and like it definitely needs to get fixed, it doesn't matter. I'm like almost blind to it because I'm just like so happy with everything else that went on the model. And I actually would love to make a video about taking another stab at that base because now I have other ideas for how to make it look better, and so I want to give it another shot. Also, I feel like there was a whole issue of I made that cool rocket conversion, and then I leaned the wing down so you couldn't even see it. So there's a few things I want to fix about the composition and also that base.
That's a good, valuable video, I think, in general. It's like fixing my worst painted model.
Exactly, something like
fixing the worst model in my army.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you put the word army on there, and suddenly everyone's fucking on board. Yeah. It's so strange, you know?
Fixing the worst thing in my 40K army.
Oh, I just creamed, baby.
Oh, man, that got 50,000 views just there.
Just for existing. It could be a 10-second long video, man.
Yeah, I mean, go back and see if there's any expensive, like, hero models. That's what you want. Fucking Drazar-esque dude that costs like 400 points. The problem is, like,
Drazar costs 80 points.
That's the problem with 40K.
That is the problem.
Versus Age of Sigmar. In Age of Sigmar, some of them smaller dudes or medium-sized hero models are way more points than they are in 40K.
Yeah, Prince on Zombie Dragon, he's 400 fucking points.
Yeah.
The other, what's the name of the
Neferata?
Neferata. She's like 350 points. And it's like
half your army, 2 models.
I know, and like it was So that is people talked about it in the comment section of videos where I mentioned it too. It's like 40K, definitely a larger model count game in general, and also apparently Dark Eldar are more of a horde army. But I'm also hearing that most armies in 40K are horde armies just because they're just it's a higher model count game.
It's a pushing, and then GW is turning the knobs up to 11 from things that I'm reading now as well, of pushing it more into higher model count for you to have to buy more kits to hit the full 2,000 points.
Yeah.
Like there's some interesting spreadsheet breakdowns on how that number has oddly continued to rise over the last 5 years as they need to ensure that their profit margin stays high. I wonder what dials we can pull.
Interesting.
Anyway.
You know, one way that I'm actually saving time to avoid the monotonous shit is I am paying Dan Mawson to assemble and base some of my army.
That is very smart.
Just because, like, I don't need to do that. I never show that footage really ever, and that would save me like definitely a couple hours. So
is that why he's wanting me to 3D print more desert shit, like cactus and shit?
Dan, don't ask John to do it. I'll do it. I live next to you, and it's for my army.
I think he also has his own weird pirate animals army and shit.
Okay,
he uses that for it too.
Okay,
so
I'll do that.
I got Dan's back. That's okay. He does.
That's probably why he's asking though. I used the succulent set from Epic Basin.
Succulent.
Okay, so right now, to put a pin in this conversation, I wanna hammer down and get an exact answer from Scott about what is the thing that you do not give a fuck about anymore? What is the thing that is your current passion driving in the hobby? And what is the thing? These are all the same question. What is the thing that the question you asked me?
Yeah.
If you didn't have a channel, your free time, what you'd be doing in this hobby right now?
I'd be doing that.
You'd be doing the Dune book.
I'd be making a Dune miniature war game, finding the models that are appropriate for that.
Oh, that's a miniature war game? It's not an RPG?
No, miniature war game.
Oh, okay. I thought it was an RPG. It looks like an RPG book to me.
Oh, yeah. It's a miniature war game. And it's the opening page is like, this is meant to be a themeless game for you to play like Alien the miniature war game with. It says that in the book. So
Oh, cool.
But yeah, so I would make that game. I'd source the models. I'd print them out. I'd paint them up. I'd play test the game with my buddies. We'd tweak the rules, and then we'd play the full version of the game. And I would like the scenario would be like one that was like attached to the books in a cool way. And like yeah, I would do all of that stuff. That's what I would do.
Okay, that's interesting. So, okay, so you would still have plenty of the hobby and the finding the cool models.
Oh my God,
printing
yeah.
them out and
Oh my God,
painting
yeah.
them and all that stuff. So you'd be hitting that, scratching that itch, but it wouldn't be. It would be more like 30% of your hobby time, as opposed to if you've got a YouTube channel about miniature painting, you have to feel like it's got to be about 70%. So the ratios are a little off, and therein lies your current conundrum.
Definitely, yeah. Definitely a little bit more interested in like painting for gaming and gaming in general. I was at I don't know if Matt Carnival listens to our podcast, but I was at Monte San Savino, not this past year, but the last year. And the last thing that Matt said to me as I walked out, he was like, he pointed at me. He was like, pay more display models. And I'm like, fuck. Like, I don't want to. Not right now, at least. I definitely like sprinkling one in every now and then, but I guess that's not the thing that I'm like super hardcore about at the moment.
Can I give you some unsolicited advice?
Always. That's this podcast. This podcast should be called Unsolicited Advice from John.
Find a display model that just seems cool, but do not put any pressure, any weight, and actually even maybe like don't even put it on social media. Don't do a video about it. Don't do whatever. Just slap some paint around, get out of your box of your, at least for the first 80% of the model, of your very, for lack of a better word, you're very tense in how you paint, Scott.
I am, yeah.
You're very tense, and I think that it puts a lot of pressure on yourself. In a lot of ways, the greatness that you have as a painter is because of that intensity that you paint with. But I think that also with it puts a lot of weight on yourself and a lot of this giant boulder you look at before you pick up the paintbrush. And I would just love it if you're like, this is not for a video. This is not for showing anybody. This is me. I don't give a shit. And just get a big brush and fuck around with colors, and you will naturally find you're honing into your intense point again. But it'll be at the very end when you're starting to see things come together and you have this sense of satisfaction. And I'm asking you to paint a model that isn't for any use, and that is going to make your heart drop a bit. I mean, it would be for me too.
Immediately, I thought of the model that I want to paint.
Yeah.
So
Do it in the evenings, you know, when you're not even here. It's not even in the environment that you're like stressed about. Maybe you'd be like, I did it last night for an hour, and I was like, I want to take it with me and fuck around with it at lunchtime tomorrow. And like, you may find it's just like, I've found the more that I stay that tense painter from the get-go, like the less I walk away with it with a feel of like growth and like weightlessness of that. And I think that with that, a lot of growth and passion is found, and you're not stressed about every little thing and making every little decision. And so I think, I'm not saying do that. I'm just saying if that's something you were like, I hear you, Carnivale. I want to do that, but I also, it's like, that's a giant boulder. That's what I started to do, and it really helped me a lot, and also helped me kind of discover like different approaches to painting and finding which ones I adhere to and which ones I don't. So
solid advice. And we kind of touched on this a little bit, I think, in the last episode, where like an individual's approach to the hobby, for lack of a better term, might be a little bit toxic and also be the thing that is discouraging you from engaging in it. It definitely is in my case. Every time I look at a model, the first thing my brain always thinks about is how difficult it's going to be to paint with the way that I paint stuff. And which is why there are so many models that just are immediately off the table for me, because like I can see the hours in every single thing, and I don't want to do that. That's why I love simple models. I love board game minis because they only allow for a certain amount of expression because there's so little going on them. Mm-hmm. And so it really kind of hems you in a bit. So that got me thinking a lot about like, I want to be deliberate about taking someone else's approach to painting and totally leaving behind how I paint models and just putting it on a model and just seeing how it feels, you know? It's been so long since I've done that, you know, like paint a model like Roman Lapad or paint a model like anyone, just to see what it is I like about their thing. But you might just discover that you don't like the way you used to paint was bad for you, or was negative, or was discouraging and stuff like that. But I appreciate you saying that.
Or even that, like, it wasn't necessarily even bad because it got you where you are. You need to be, be understanding and grateful for the growth that you had in any way that you got there. And I think all of us, don't think that you should be anything you've done to this point is a negative, but it's more of like, well, how do I maximize or find both the passion and the room for growth moving forward? And the thing that kind of got that for me was just really taking a look at people like watching Eric Swinson's videos, and then even going back and watching stuff from Banshee,
Right.
about these guys are able to have this level of high-end execution. But I watched like 4 hours of an Eric Swinson series. In 3.5 of the 4 hours, it was with a giant brush and just figuring out colors and generic light placements. And it wasn't that. It was all this foundational work. It's not about exactitude. It's about creating drama. And drama is not about smooth for the first 90% of the model. You can pull it together at the end, but I'm just like, oh, isn't that such a giant weight? That's a reason why Eric can paint to one of the best painters in the world level, but still quickly, because he's understanding of volumes and color interaction and light and just keeping it super, super basic. It's like 2 or 3 variables, and let that take you most of the way. And then at the end, how much you want to refine and smooth and edge highlight and really crisp up things. That's only at the end. I'm like, oh. And that may not be how you decide to paint forever, but at least you're like, well, God, this is the opposite side of the spectrum, as I feel like we've been taught to from standard GW models painting approach from the beginning. And it's like, oh, there's a wide spectrum there.
Yeah, there absolutely is. I feel like I had a mini version of that when I watched Trent Dennison paint on his channel.
Oh, God, yeah.
Time. And I was like, I'm going to try out this idea of like painting sloppy and then smoothing with an airbrush and then kind of like doing that back and forth. But yeah, it's definitely uncomfortable.
It is very uncomfortable. It reminds you that, like, oh shit, this is what it was like when I was new and I didn't know what I was doing between each
yeah.
step.
And that feels so bad because it's like I've worked hard to get to where I am, to have full confidence that no matter where a paint job is, if I'm painting in my style, I can make it look good given any amount of time.
Yes.
But when you let go of that buoy, you're out to sea. And you're like, the same guarantees are not true.
Yeah. Well, I think you'll find that they are true. It's just a lot scarier the first couple times.
Sure.
Yeah, because you still have all that to lean back on, but it sure doesn't feel like you do in the moment.
Yeah. Yep. Fuck. Well, that's a great place, I think, to end the conversation, right?
Yeah, we did solve all the world's issues.
We did. If I could leave you with one final thought from myself, it'd be just to listen to yourself. Like shut everything out in the world around you and just focus on what you want to do in this hobby. It doesn't matter about anyone else, really. It's about maintaining your joy and chasing it greedily. So just really listen to what you think you want to do and chase it.
If it's what excites you, that's the right answer.
Yep.
It's as simple as that.
100%. Hundo P. Welcome to the end of the podcast. Thank you so much for hanging out all the way to the end and listening to us chat on about muses and grooves and passions and all kinds of stuff. I really felt like that was a great conversation.
I do too.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that actually a lot.
That's the kind of conversation I think we would probably have had a similar conversation over tendies, like just the two of us talking through our own, journeys that we're going through right now. But I think everybody's on that same journey in some path, whether you realize it or not.
I hope so.
So it just means you got to find what you like, because something you do like, you just focus on that.
If you guys like the podcast and you want to support it, there are numbers of ways that you can do that. If you want some free ways, you can just share this podcast with your hobby friends. You can give us a review wherever you listen to podcasts. You can watch the podcast on YouTube, which has ads enabled. We play an ad every 30 minutes. It helps us out a lot as well. If you have some cash to spend, you can consider investing into our Patreon, which gets you access to an extended version of each episode. Every single episode since the very beginning. We are on season 6 right now, and there are 26, 27, 28 episodes a season.
25, 26.
Somewhere in there. Every single one has an extended portion where we talk about things like models that we like from other painters and why we like them in the last 2 weeks, new things that we've tried and failed at, And also we give feedback to one of our patrons as well. As a patron, you can also give us topic ideas for videos as well. This week wasn't one. This one was John's idea. But we do often pull from there for inspiration and give you some credit when we use your topic. So you can do that. And then lastly, we have a Teespring down in the description below and also the show notes where you can pick up some of our merch. Cool shirts, sweatpants, cups for your paint cup water, and all sorts of stuff down there as well.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone, for your support. We can't not say that enough. You are the archangels that fight off Lucifer in this dramatic Renaissance play that we call Trapped Under Plastic. And
Wow.
I don't know what to say after that other than
Yeah, where's there to go after that?
there's nowhere to go but to the holy gates where we have to fight off the demons yet again 1 fortnight from now. And until then, we catch you on the
Flippity flop.